Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world that looks calm, clean and aggressively beige, but is quietly held together by pharmaceuticals and casseroles. Welcome to the American suburbs of the 1960s, a place where lawns were perfect, smiles were mandatory, and the solution to emotional exhaustion was a small yellow pill prescribed by a man who smoked during your appointment. Not therapy, not resting, Nembutal. So before you get comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Somehow, no matter where you are, it's always late, you're tired, and you're questioning your life choices just a little. Now dim the lights, turn on a fan for that soft, comforting hum, get cozy, and maybe place your phone just far enough away that you won't doom scroll yourself into tomorrow. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered what it was like to be a mother in the 1960s? How did anyone survive on 4 hours of sleep, 3 children, 1 emotionally unavailable husband, and a diet of meatloaf and cigarette smoke? Did doctors really hand out barbiturates like breath mints? How many Nembutals did it take to get through a PTA meeting without crying in the bathroom? What happens when a little something to help you sleep turns into the most dangerous thing in your medicine cabinet? And now congratulations, you've just woken up in 1962. You're in a pastel kitchen with linoleum floors, a percolator screaming on the counter, and a medicine cabinet that knows more about you than your best friend. You're already tired. Good luck. You wake before the alarm because your body has learned not to trust rest. The house is quiet in that tense artificial way, like it's holding its breath. The air smells faintly of last night's dinner, floor cleaner, and something medicinal you can't quite place. Your feet hit the cold linoleum and for a brief moment you just stand there, wondering if today will be better or exactly the same. It's still dark enough outside that the streetlights cast a pale orange glow through your half-closed curtains, striping the wall with zebra shadows. Somewhere in the distance a dog barks, or maybe it's the neighbour's child, but in here, time stands perfectly still. The quiet is not restful, it's waiting. Like the whole house knows there are lists to be checked, shoes to be found, and someone's going to spill something, probably before sunrise. The refrigerator hums, steady and judgmental, reminding you that modern convenience is never truly silent. You shuffle to the bathroom, the soles of your feet numb against the chilled tile, every step an awkward reminder that insulation was just a rumour in mid-century America. The mirror greets you with a version of yourself who looks like she's been sleeping with one eye open since Eisenhower. You brush your teeth. The toothpaste is minty, the water slightly metallic. You don't smile at your reflection, not yet. That's a performance for later. In the kitchen, the clock ticks louder than it should, and you hear the faint ticking of your own mind as it starts cataloguing the day's necessities. Lunches, clean socks, a form someone forgot to sign, a grocery list, a sense of purpose. The percolator begins to gurgle. Soon the entire house will smell like burnt coffee and anxiety. You're not hungry, but you will make breakfast, because that's what is expected, and you're nothing if not dependable. You wonder if any of your neighbours are awake, shuffling through their identical houses, facing their own matching wallpaper, and quietly desperate thoughts. The first real noise is always the creak of someone else's door. A child, or your husband, or the ghost of yesterday's optimism coming back for one more round. You hear the familiar shuffle of slippers, the clink of silverware, the low murmur of the television that someone has turned on too early. The house comes alive in stutters and false starts, the kind of waking that feels like swimming up through syrup. You reach for the pill bottle almost automatically. It sits behind the sugar bowl, pretending to be ordinary, but you both know it's the real engine of this entire production. One small yellow capsule with your coffee, and you feel the possibility of calm sneak in around the edges, softening the sharp corners of the morning. It's not escape exactly, it's survival, mid-century style. Outside, a car door slams. Somewhere, a lawn sprinkler starts. You press your forehead to the cool glass of the kitchen window and stare out at the street. driveways lined with Fords and Buicks, morning newspapers blooming on lawns like sad little promises. The world feels both limitless and claustrophobic. You are the linchpin of this universe, the invisible machinery that keeps everything running, even if no one notices unless it stops. By the time the rest of the family appears, you've already been awake for hours in your head. The quiet of the house is gone, replaced by the gentle chaos of daily life, children's voices, running water, the scraping of chairs, and the inevitable question about breakfast. You answer automatically, your voice smooth and practiced. The show has started. But for a few minutes, in the hush before the day begins, you are both everywhere and nowhere. A still point in a spinning world. The house may never really sleep, but sometimes, in the silence before morning, you almost do. Before breakfast, before brushing your teeth, before acknowledging your own existence, you open the medicine cabinet. Inside are neat little bottles with friendly labels and terrifying contents. You swallow a Nembutal with coffee that tastes like regret and optimism in equal measure. The edge softens. The world becomes manageable. This feels normal now. The bathroom is washed in weak daylight, the kind that makes everything look vaguely sepia, like you're living in a faded photograph from someone else's childhood. You reach for the pill almost reflexively, your hand moving past the cold cream and the cough syrup to find that familiar bottle with its cheerful promise of rest. The cap clicks open with a sound you know by heart. There's something reassuring about routines, even the ones that would horrify your future grandchildren. You don't even bother with water. The pill goes down with the first sip of coffee, bitter, instant, just a step above punishment. The mug is your armour, chipped on one side and permanently stained. You wonder, not for the first time, if there's an award for most consecutive mornings survived on willpower and pharmaceuticals. There should be. Outside the frosted window, the world is waking up. The postman shuffles past. The neighbour's dog marks its territory for the 8th time. A lawnmower coughs to life even though it's barely light. In here, though, time moves differently. You move differently, padded by that little chemical buffer, the sense that nothing truly terrible can happen before 9 a.m, except, maybe, running out of coffee. Your doctor called it a little something to take the edge off. He said it with the easy confidence of a man who never has to find lost shoes for 3 different children before the sun comes up. You remember the first time you took one, how the world went pleasantly soft around the edges, like a photo with all the hard bits airbrushed out, the worries quieted, the headaches retreated, and for a few blessed hours you could almost hear yourself think. Now, it's just what you do. The bottle lives on the top shelf, next to a box of bandages and a tube of toothpaste you never use because it tastes like chalk. Sometimes you read the label, all warnings and fine print, and think about calling the pharmacy for a refill. Other times, you just shake the bottle and count the pills, hoping there's enough to get you through the next wave of spelling tests, casserole disasters, and unscheduled emotional meltdowns. Breakfast happens somewhere in the middle of this process. You might eat a piece of toast, or you might just inhale the smell of burned bread and call it good. The children are a background hum. Someone crying about socks, someone else pouring sugar on cornflakes like it's a food group. You sip your coffee, you take your pill, and you press on. The radio offers company. Cheerful announcers, tinny music. The news from faraway places you can't imagine ever visiting. It's all pleasant static, a soundtrack for the business of staying upright. Sometimes you wonder if everyone in your neighbourhood starts their day this way, if there's a secret society of mothers who meet in their kitchens at dawn, all washed out and waiting for the medicine to kick in. There's a moment, brief and private, when the pill finally settles and you feel the change. The world shifts just slightly. You're still tired, still overwhelmed, but the sharpness is gone. The sense of doom recedes to the far corners of your mind. You can face the day, even if you're not sure why. By the time you finish your coffee, the house is awake. Doors slam, feet pound the hallway, and the questions begin. Where's my book? Can you sign this? Have you seen the cat? You answer automatically, the words rolling out of you with practiced ease. You are present, you are functional, and thanks to that little yellow pill, you are calm, or at least something close enough to pass. So you step into the living room, mug in hand, ready for whatever the 1960s wants to throw at you next. The day has begun, and you're floating just above the chaos, at least for a little while. The kids arrive at the kitchen table like a natural disaster, loud, sticky, and demanding carbohydrates. Someone is crying. Someone else is yelling about cereal. You nod, smile, and move on autopilot, already exhausted by people who have been awake for 12 minutes. The first child slams into the kitchen at full speed, trailing the scent of Johnson's baby shampoo and faint existential dread. Pajamas are askew. Hair is a science experiment. There are socks, but never a matching pair, and you wonder if there's a secret black hole in the house that exists solely to consume children's clothing. The youngest is already sticky somehow, even though breakfast hasn't started. You don't question it. The second child materializes out of nowhere, clutching a half-crumpled permission slip and a firm belief that breakfast must happen immediately, or they will perish. The third appears wordlessly, communicating only in grunts and shrugs, and immediately starts poking the others. There are always more children than you remember, as if the neighbourhood has a rotation system to keep you on your toes. The kitchen is now a storm. Milk spills, someone's elbow connects with a juice glass, a spoon clatters to the floor, and for reasons known only to toddlers and minor gods, this is enough to trigger a meltdown. You move with the quiet efficiency of a disaster relief coordinator, pouring cereal, cutting fruit, refilling cups, mediating peace talks about who got the most marshmallows. You remind yourself to breathe through your nose because breathing through your mouth just gives the world too many opportunities to knock the wind out of you. Cereal is everywhere, on the table, the floor, occasionally in someone's hair. A child tries to convince you that chocolate syrup counts as a vegetable. The television flickers in the background, and you suspect that the animated characters are more awake than you are. The dog makes a brief, ill-advised appearance, sniffing for toast crusts and making off with someone's slipper. You stare at the dog and feel an odd pang of envy. The dog's life is simple. The dog has never once been asked to sew a button onto a shirt at 7:14 a.m. Someone starts crying about toast. You give up on reasoning and hand over the last piece, knowing you'll end up eating the burnt edges later in the car. Every request from the children is urgent, delivered at maximum volume, and repeated 3 times for emphasis. You try to answer, but your words are swallowed by the sheer force of early morning energy. The soundscape is relentless, a symphony of small crises, big emotions, and the ceaseless clang of silverware. You hand out lunches you packed last night, which are immediately critiqued with the savage honesty of food critics who have never paid for a meal. Why is there tuna? Why not more cookies? Why can't anyone just eat a sandwich like a normal person? You smile, nod, and mentally retreat to your happy place. A world where all sandwiches are accepted and no one cries over the shape of their apple slices. At some point, your husband walks through, grabs a slice of toast, and vanishes. No one notices. The children are too busy arguing about who gets to sit in which chair, as if it actually matters. It does, to them. Everything matters, urgently, all at once. You realise in this moment that you're the gravity holding all these tiny, frantic planets in orbit. You keep them spinning, you keep them fed, you keep them clothed in whatever unmatched socks you can find. Your coffee is cold now, but you don't care. You've made it through another breakfast, more or less, and the sun is barely up. Eventually the chaos shifts toward the door, backpacks on, shoes only mostly tied. Someone has forgotten something. You hand over a lunch, a jacket, a last-minute hug. The house empties. The kitchen is quiet. You're left alone in the wreckage, already tired, already counting the hours until bedtime. knowing the cycle will begin all over again tomorrow. Your husband enters, already dressed, already late, already emotionally unavailable. He kisses your cheek without looking at you and asks where his socks are. You tell him, even though you found them yesterday and put them in the exact place he never checks. He leaves. The house exhales. Every morning with him is a kind of performance art, a series of repetitive gestures and muted exchanges that would win awards for minimalism. His footsteps are quick, decisive, but never quite hurried. The tie is always a little crooked. The hair always has the mark of the comb, but never the satisfaction of a second glance. He smells of aftershave and distant ambition, a blend that's both reassuring and slightly disappointing, like a TV dinner with too much pepper. He reads the newspaper while standing because apparently sitting would signal he has time to enjoy his life. The pages crackle with world events and local disasters, but his eyes never quite focus. You ask if he'd like breakfast. He says he's fine. He's always fine. He never says hungry, tired, terrified by the crushing weight of generational expectations. Just fine, and you both move on. His coffee's black, just like the hole in the conversation. You pour it for him anyway. Sometimes he takes it to go. Sometimes he stands at the counter, staring into the mug as if waiting for it to reveal tomorrow's stock tips. He thanks you with a nod that feels like it could be replaced by a telegram. You don't mind. You've been together long enough that a nod is a love letter and a grunt is a novella. Then comes the daily ritual of the lost socks. It's always socks, never shirts, never belts. Always socks. You have a designated drawer for them, organised by colour and level of despair. Still, he looks everywhere except the place you put them. You watch this happen and feel a strange mix of fondness and mild irritation. Some people go their whole lives without being needed. You, on the other hand, are apparently required for basic sock navigation. He asks if you've seen his briefcase. You have. It's on the chair by the door. You say, on the chair by the door. He blinks, as if surprised objects have fixed locations in three-dimensional space. He picks up the briefcase and thanks you again. You smile. It's a well-rehearsed scene, performed daily, never written down, and only slightly exhausting. Sometimes, just as he's about to leave, he remembers something urgent, a meeting, a phone call, a story about his co-worker's new car. He tells you in a rush, like he's passing along secret intelligence. You nod, mentally filing it away with the rest of his day's data. Who needs to be picked up? Who's allergic to what? What time the roast should go in the oven if he actually makes it home on time tonight. He kisses you on the cheek, lips grazing your skin for half a second before he's out the door. The front door closes with a muffled thump, like a full stop at the end of a sentence you didn't finish writing. You watch him walk down the drive, confident, briefcase in hand, already somewhere else in his mind. For a moment, you imagine what his day will be. Office chatter, clattering typewriters, the soft but constant buzz of fluorescent lights. Meetings that could have been memos. Cigarette breaks he'll never admit to. Lunch at a counter with men who talk about baseball, weather, anything but their real lives. He'll come home tired, still fine, his mind running in loops you can't quite join. And so the house finally exhales. The tension lifts just a little. The kitchen feels wider, the air less crowded. For a few precious minutes, it's just you and the soft hum of appliances, alone in a kingdom of crumbs and coffee rings. You sip your own coffee, thinking maybe one day he'll look for his socks and find his way back to you. For now, you savour the silence he leaves behind, proof that sometimes loving someone means loving the space they create when they're gone. You assemble sandwiches with surgical precision and zero joy. Wax paper sticks to your fingers. Peanut butter coats the counter. At some point you forget which lunch belongs to which child, but statistically, someone will survive. The act of making lunches in the 1960s is part ballet, part science experiment, and part existential crisis. You stand at the counter in a fog, performing the familiar choreography, open the bread, unscrew the jar, spread the peanut butter with the edge of a butter knife that's seen better days. There's jelly too sometimes, occasionally a slice of bologna, although even the bologna seems unsure of its place in the universe. You glance at the clock, amazed at how time both stretches and shrinks in these moments. Some mornings it feels like you've been packing lunches since the Truman administration. Other days you blink and it's already time to herd everyone out the door, whether or not anyone's lunch actually contains food. You rely on muscle memory, your hands know what to do, even if your brain has checked out for a quick cigarette break on the porch of your subconscious. Each lunchbox is a time capsule, lined with wax paper and maternal guilt. You slip in an apple, small, mealy, and somehow bruised despite its recent arrival from the grocery store. There's a packet of cookies, or in your more ambitious moments, a cellophane-wrapped homemade treat that's already falling apart at the seams. Sometimes you include a note, nothing elaborate, just a reminder that someone is thinking of them, even as you forget who's getting the tuna and who can't stand mayonnaise. As the lunches pile up, so does the debris. Breadcrumbs, jelly smears, a constellation of dropped raisins. The counter is a battlefield, and you, the weary general, must soldier on. The wax paper clings to everything but the sandwich it's meant to wrap. It's a delicate balance between wrapping things too tightly and not tightly enough. So by noon, half the contents will have migrated to the opposite end of the lunchbox, forming new alliances with unrelated food groups. Every once in a while, you attempt creativity, cutting sandwiches into shapes, swapping white bread for wheat, or sneaking in a carrot stick as a half-hearted nod to nutrition. You know, deep down, these gestures will not be met with gratitude. The children will trade anything resembling a vegetable for something containing sugar, and the shaped sandwiches will return home with a single bite missing, a kind of edible performance art. All the while, the kitchen is alive with a low hum of chaos. A child storms through looking for a book report. Another wants to know why you can't just pack Twinkies for lunch like normal mums. The dog, eternally hopeful, waits at your feet for the moment when a stray piece of cheese escapes your grasp. You step over him, step around a forgotten toy, step through a maze of invisible obstacles that only reveal themselves when you stub your toe. You try to keep track. Did you pack the allergy-friendly lunch for the middle child? Or is this the day you get a phone call from the school nurse? Did you remember to use the sandwich with no crust for the youngest? Or will there be a dramatic post-lunch debrief later, involving tears and righteous indignation? You give up trying to remember and just hope for the best. The odds are in your favour, statistically, even if no one appreciates the calculus involved. As the last lunch is closed, you look at the assembly, 6 battered lunch boxes lined up like tiny soldiers about to head into battle. You stack them by the door, wipe your hands on your apron and stare into the middle distance. For a brief, luminous moment, you allow yourself to believe you've accomplished something great. Maybe not perfect, but good enough. The peanut butter dries on the counter. The wax paper rustles in the trash. You pour yourself another cup of coffee and exhale, ready for whatever small disaster the next hour will bring. Lunches are done, at least. That has to count for something. The door closes. The house is finally quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. You stand alone in the kitchen, listening to the refrigerator hum like it's judging you. This is supposed to be your moment. Instead, you feel heavier. The air shifts as soon as the family vanishes, the way a pond goes still after someone throws in a rock. No more shouting, no more footsteps, no more requests for toast or math homework, or immediate emotional mediation. The silence, after all that noise, is almost suspicious. You wait, expecting someone to burst back in for a forgotten mitten or a last-minute hug, but no, this time, it's just you and the kitchen. It should be a luxury, a breath of freedom. Instead, it lands with the soft, heavy weight of responsibility. Sunlight starts to creep across the floor, illuminating the battlefield you just survived. Toast crumbs, a forgotten shoe, a milk spill drying into a sticky map of the Americas. You consider cleaning up right away, but that would mean admitting the chaos has won. Instead, you perch on a kitchen stool, gaze at the faded wallpaper, and notice how the cheerful fruit motif now looks faintly mocking. The silence is a stage, and you are both the audience and the reluctant star. Your coffee, finely untouched by small hands, sits cooling beside you. You drink it slowly, feeling the bitterness anchor you in the moment. The taste is sharper now, with no chatter to disguise it. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a to-do list is slowly unrolling, a scroll of domestic prophecies that need to be fulfilled by noon. But for a few minutes, you do nothing except sit, breathe, and listen to the hum of your own thoughts. And that's when the guilt sneaks in. The sense that if you're not moving, producing, tidying, or cooking, you're wasting precious time. You consider reading a magazine, but the thought of starting an article you won't finish feels like tempting fate. There's always laundry, always something sticky to scrub, always a call you could make to a neighbour about the upcoming bake sale. But the silence doesn't cheerlead. It just observes, neutral and unmoved, like a cat judging your life choices. You get up and drift from room to room, noticing things you missed in the morning rush. A pencil under the sofa, a single sock exiled to the hallway, the slight tilt of a family photo where everyone's smiling a little too hard. The house seems different without witnesses, less like a home and more like a museum of effort. Every cushion plumped, every knick-knack dusted, every scrap of evidence that you're keeping it all together, one day at a time. In the laundry room, the machine sits idle, waiting for you to decide whether to tackle the growing pile or ignore it for a few more precious minutes. You open the door, peer into the drum and close it again. Not yet. The silence holds you in place, neither restful nor oppressive, just there. It's a blank page you're expected to fill with usefulness. The fridge kicks on, louder now, as if offering advice you didn't ask for. You wonder what it would be like to just sit at the kitchen table and do nothing. Just breathe in the rare, unclaimed quiet. The urge to fidget, to clean, to start dinner 6 hours early is strong. Instead, you wander back to the living room and stare out the window. The street is empty. The mailman hasn't arrived. The world, it seems, is also catching its breath, and so you let yourself stand still a little longer. In this peculiar, echoing hush, you feel the thrum of your own heart, the weight of days both past and coming. Maybe, you think, this is as close to peace as it gets. A fragile truce with the world, a momentary détente with your own expectations. For now, you let the silence hold you, even if it never quite lets you rest. You face the laundry pile, which has grown overnight through unknown means, socks without matches, shirts that smell vaguely like despair. You load the machine, knowing this will solve nothing long-term. Laundry in this house is not a chore, it's a cosmic joke. No matter how many times you sort, wash and fold, the pile regenerates, growing stronger with every attempt to defeat it. The clothes hamper is a hungry portal, an entity with needs and moods of its own. You wonder if scientists will ever discover where unmatched socks go, or if it's simply a law of nature that for every clean pair, another is sacrificed to the dryer gods. The shirts are a gallery of stains, ketchup, grass, mystery blotches that appeared out of nowhere, each one a cryptic diary entry of a day you barely survived. There's your husband's work shirt, which smells like a combination of motor oil and unresolved ambition. The children's clothes arrive in the basket in states ranging from mildly dusty to may require professional intervention. Some garments you swear you've never seen before, as if the neighbours are slipping in their laundry as a subtle cry for help. Sorting is a meditative act, or at least that's what you tell yourself as you separate whites from colours, delicates from the destroy me, I dare you pile. Every so often you discover loose change, a marble, a wilted crayon, or, on one memorable occasion, a petrified slice of bologna. These small treasures remind you that life is happening, even as you repeat this domestic dance for the 1000th time. You load the washing machine with all the gravitas of a priest performing a ritual. The detergent box promises freshness, sunshine, and a whiter tomorrow, but mostly delivers a chemical blast strong enough to stun a mule. You set the cycle, Warm, cold, hot, it hardly matters, and press start. The machine rumbles to life, churning away like a distant, disinterested relative. You watch the water swirl and try not to think about the futility of it all. While you wait, you attempt to tackle the folding from yesterday, which is now a wrinkled pile on the living room sofa. Folding is less about neatness and more about hope. Maybe, if you fold these shirts carefully enough, someone will actually put them away instead of using them as an impromptu cushion or blanket fort wall. You line up stacks of shirts, pants, and tiny socks, none of which match, but you tell yourself it's fine. Somewhere, an ideal mother is colour-coding her drawers. You're not that woman, and that's okay. There's always that one pair of pants you hope will fit someone, anyone, this year. You do the pants math in your head. Will they fit the middle child? Or has he grown since last Tuesday? You debate calling in a forensic team to identify the owner of a particularly small sweater that no one will claim. By the time you finish, the original laundry pile has somehow replenished itself. The cycle is endless. The clothes are eternal. The machine finishes with a triumphant buzz that sounds far more optimistic than you feel. You transfer everything to the dryer, tossing in a sheet that claims to smell like spring rain, but delivers more of a forgotten basement vibe. You clean the lint trap, silently thanking it for not catching fire, and close the door. You have bought yourself a brief, illusory moment of progress, but you know better. Laundry is never finished. It waits, quietly multiplying, just out of sight. You'll do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, because that's what keeps the world spinning. You don't expect gratitude or recognition. You just want a matching pair of socks and 5 consecutive minutes without a grass stain. For now, you sit back, sip your lukewarm coffee, and accept your fate. In the battle of human versus laundry, no one truly wins, but at least you fought bravely today. You wipe surfaces with products that promise freshness but deliver fumes. The house shines, but you feel dull. Everything smells lemony and artificial, like happiness you can buy in a bottle. Cleaning in the 1960s is less about dirt and more about performance. Every surface must glimmer. Every counter must pass the white glove test, even if the only gloves you own are rubber, neon pink and slightly too large. You spray, you scrub, you polish, you buff. The advertising jingles echo in your head. So clean you could eat off the floor. But you wouldn't. Not unless you enjoy the subtle tang of ammonia with your toast. The kitchen is your battleground, the sink your weary ally. You rotate through an arsenal of cleaning products, each promising miracles. The blue bottle attacks grease on contact. The yellow bottle annihilates germs for good. There's a spray for the fridge, a paste for the bathroom, a powder for stains that have survived 3 presidential administrations. You find a perverse comfort in the order of it all. Spray, wipe, rinse, repeat. The only thing you control in this house is the gleam of the appliances and the blinding reflection from the kitchen faucet. The scent of lemon is everywhere. So much lemon. Lemon floors, lemon windows, lemon furniture polish, lemon-scented existential dread. You wonder if anyone has ever seen a real lemon, or if they all smell like this, sharp, synthetic, always just on the edge of giving you a headache. You pause, cloth in hand, and realise you've achieved a kind of chemical-induced meditation. Inhale. Exhale. Hold your breath when you get to the bathroom. You tackle the bathroom with grim determination. The tile is always a battlefield. The mildew, persistent and resourceful, laughs in the face of even the most caustic cleaner. You spray, you scrub, you hope. The mirror fogs over, not from steam, but from fumes. You wonder if your ancestors dreamed of a future where women could bleach away their troubles and dissolve their worries in a bucket of suds. Back in the living room, you dust surfaces with a spray that's supposed to repel dirt for up to 48 hours. You know that's a lie, but it's a comforting one. The television sparkles, the bookshelves shine, and even the plastic slipcovers glisten with pride. The air hangs heavy with the cloying blend of lemon, pine, and the underlying scent of defeat. The house looks immaculate, and you suspect this is the moment the neighbours might spontaneously decide to drop by. They never do. The children, if they notice, only notice what you've missed. A faint fingerprint, a rogue crumb, a sticky spot that escaped the all-seeing eye of mother. You accept their critique with a silent sigh and a threat to withhold dessert if they track mud through the hall. The dog watches your progress from a safe distance, plotting his next attack on the freshly mopped floor. The act of cleaning is endless, cyclical, and deeply unfulfilling. You polish one table and another gathers dust behind your back. You finish the windows only for a bird to immediately leave its own critique on the glass. The reward is temporary, fleeting. A moment where everything is clean, everything is orderly, and the universe feels almost manageable. And then, within minutes, the chaos resumes. You realise you've been holding your breath, bracing for the next mess, the next disaster, the next small proof that entropy always wins. The house shines, but you're still tired, still slightly sticky from cleaning sprays, still faintly glowing from the sheer volume of chemicals you've absorbed. You finally collapse onto the couch, the only surface you haven't just sanitized. The room smells bright and sharp and not quite real. You close your eyes, inhale that store-bought freshness, and hope that somewhere, beneath the lemon and the effort, there's a little bit of peace, at least until someone spills juice in the hallway. Again! You sit down for coffee and realize your hands are shaking, not from caffeine, but from everything else. Another pill seems reasonable. The doctor said it was fine. The doctor always says it's fine. You notice the tremor as you lift the mug, the porcelain clicking softly against the saucer like it's trying to warn you. The coffee is still too hot, but you sip it anyway because waiting feels inefficient. The kitchen is spotless now, aggressively clean, and the silence has returned. Thicker this time, heavier. There's nothing left to distract you from your own thoughts, and that's rarely a good sign. The pill bottle sits nearby, casual, unthreatening. It doesn't rattle when you pick it up. You've learned how to move quietly around it, like a familiar piece of furniture. The label is friendly, reassuring, printed in tidy letters that suggest authority and care. Take as directed. You're taking as directed. Probably. You remember the appointment. The doctor's office smelled like antiseptic and cigarette smoke. He barely looked up from your chart. You told him you were tired. You told him you felt overwhelmed. You didn't have the words for what was really wrong, because there weren't words for it yet. He nodded, smiled, and handed you the solution in a paper bag, something to help you relax, something to take the edge off, something millions of women were taking, which meant it had to be safe. So you take another pill, you do it calmly, deliberately, with the same care you use when measuring detergent or seasoning a casserole. This isn't desperation. This is maintenance. This is keeping the machine running. The coffee cools as you sit there, watching sunlight creep across the kitchen floor. Dust motes float lazily in the air, sparkling like tiny, useless miracles. Your breathing slows. The shaking eases just a little. The sharpness of the morning dulls around the edges like someone turned the volume knob down on the world. This is the part you like. This is the part that works. Your thoughts soften. The list in your head, the errands, the expectations, the constant internal narration begins to blur. You still know what needs to be done, but it no longer feels urgent. The day stretches out in front of you, manageable now, like a long hallway with the lights dimmed. You wonder, briefly, if this is how other people feel all the time, calm, even, slightly detached from the pressure of existing. You shake the thought away and take another sip of coffee. Best not to question things when they're finally going smoothly. The radio hums quietly in the background, a woman's voice advertising something you don't need but might buy anyway. Everyone sounds so cheerful on the radio, so certain. You imagine them all sitting upright at desks untouched by laundry piles and quiet dread. You envy them, just a little. Time passes strangely after the second pill. Minutes slide into each other. You stand up, then forget why. You sit back down, reassured by the solid weight of the chair. The house feels farther away now, like you're observing it through glass. Still present, still responsible, just buffered. You tell yourself you deserve this. You've earned it. Anyone managing a household like this would need help. This isn't weakness. It's modern medicine, progress, science stepping in where emotional support failed to show up. Outside, a car drives past. Somewhere a phone rings. The world keeps going, oblivious. You finish your coffee, now lukewarm and forgotten, and set the mug in the sink with careful precision. No sudden movements. No need to rush. For now, you feel steady, capable. The day hasn't beaten you yet. And as long as the pills last and the doctor keeps saying it's fine, you can keep sitting here, floating just above the noise, convincing yourself this is what coping looks like, at least until the coffee wears off. Through the window, you spot a neighbour pretending not to look inside your house. She waves, you wave back. You both know everything about each other and will never talk about it. She stands across the street, half hidden behind her living room curtain, coffee cup raised like a shield. Her hair is set perfectly, helmet-like, as if it could survive a mild tornado. She's wearing slacks even though it's barely mid-morning, which tells you everything you need to know about her mental state. This is not a woman relaxing. This is a woman monitoring. The wave is polite, casual, a social contract sealed with fingers instead of words. You smile the way you've practiced, pleasant, neutral, revealing nothing. The kind of smile that says everything is fine here, nothing to report, move along. She mirrors it perfectly. You both turn away at the exact same moment as if choreographed. In this neighbourhood, privacy is theoretical. Everyone knows who missed church last Sunday. Everyone noticed whose husband came home late. Everyone can tell which houses smell like bacon in the morning and which ones smell like cigarettes and quiet disappointment. You know that Mrs. Klein, 2 doors down, drinks sherry before noon. She knows you haven't hung laundry outside in weeks. Neither of you will ever mention it. The windows are large by design, meant to showcase domestic success. Bright kitchens, clean counters, cheerful curtains. They're not really windows so much as display cases. Proof that you're doing your job correctly. You glance at your reflection in the glass and wonder if you look convincing enough from the street. The house is spotless now, thanks to chemical optimism and sheer will. That should count for something. You pretend to busy yourself at the counter, rearranging items that don't need rearranging. You can feel the attention like a low hum, even when no one is technically watching. It's the knowledge that at any moment someone could glance up from their coffee and take inventory of your life. Curtains open or closed, lights on or off, car in the driveway when it should be gone. You remember the time someone asked if everything was okay, because your blinds were drawn in the middle of the day. You laughed it off, said you were cleaning. That answer worked. Cleaning is always acceptable. Cleaning explains everything. No one questions a woman who's cleaning. Outside, another neighbour passes by pushing a stroller, slowing just enough to look at your front door. You recognise the look immediately. It's not concern, it's comparison. You offer another smile through the glass, just in case. The stroller keeps moving. This is how community works here, through glances and assumptions, through polite waves and careful silence. You borrow sugar from people who could recite your weekly schedule. You compliment casseroles you suspect came from cans. You exchange recipes, but never feelings. That would be inappropriate. You wonder, sometimes, if they're all holding it together the same way you are. If behind every bright window there's another woman standing in a clean kitchen, slightly medicated, wondering if this is all there is. But wondering out loud would break the spell. It would introduce something messy, something real. So you stay quiet. You wave. You maintain appearances. You keep the house tidy and the pills hidden and the smile ready. From the outside, everything looks exactly as it should. Eventually the street empties, curtains flutter shut. The neighbourhood returns to its low-level hum of mutual surveillance. You step away from the window, heart beating just a little faster than necessary, and remind yourself that you're doing fine. Everyone thinks so. And in this neighbourhood, being thought fine is the same as being fine. By late morning, exhaustion settles in your bones. Not physical tiredness, existential tiredness. You lie down just for a minute and wake up an hour later, confused and groggy. It always creeps in around 10:47 a.m, when the sun slants across the living room in such a way that it highlights every speck of dust you didn't clean, every forgotten toy, every flaw in your housekeeping, and maybe even in your character. It's not the kind of tired you can sleep off. It's the tired of being endlessly needed, endlessly available, endlessly spinning invisible plates for an audience that only notices when you drop one. You catch yourself sighing deeply, and you realize you've been holding your breath since sunrise. There's a strange loneliness in this fatigue. You can feel it behind your eyes, in your jaw, in the way your shoulders slump when no one's looking. You think about all the women in your neighbourhood, behind all those tidy windows, and wonder if they too are moving through their day like astronauts, alone, silent, carrying the weight of small worlds. You think about your own mother, about all the mothers before you, and for a moment the weight feels historic, epic, and just a little absurd. You promise yourself a small reward, 5 minutes to just sit, just to regroup. You make your way to the sofa, a landmass of upholstery that's more familiar than comforting. You don't even bother arranging the throw pillows. You just let yourself fall into their forgiving embrace. Just a minute, you whisper. It's the greatest lie in the maternal playbook. The house is so quiet it's almost suspicious. You listen for a moment, convinced that you're missing something, an appointment, a knock at the door, a child's request for a permission slip you forgot to sign. Nothing comes. The only sounds are the muffled ticking of the hallway clock and the slow whir of the refrigerator still judging you from the kitchen. You close your eyes. Your mind, sensing freedom, immediately begins to race. Did you remember to take the roast out of the freezer? Is there enough detergent for the next load of laundry? When was the last time you spoke to an adult about something other than school lunches or soap scum? These thoughts chase each other in circles until, mercifully, they soften and drift, and you slip into that warm, weightless place between awake and asleep. When you finally resurface, the clock has leapt ahead. You're not sure if it's been 20 minutes or 2 hours. The light has shifted. The room feels changed, as if you've missed a secret meeting where everyone decided what kind of day it would be. You sit up slowly, heart pounding with a weird combination of guilt and rebellion. How dare you nap? How dare you not? Your mouth is dry, your hair is a disaster, and your limbs are heavy with the sticky feeling of sleep that didn't quite solve anything. You look around for witnesses. No one is here to see you in this rare, unguarded state. The sofa has imprinted patterns onto your cheek. You consider lying back down just for another minute, but you know better. You stand and stretch, every joint protesting, every muscle making the case for going back to bed. But you move forward, propelled by a mixture of inertia and obligation. The fatigue is still there, less a feeling now and more a part of you, stitched into your bones like old family secrets. You walk back to the kitchen, pour yourself a fresh cup of coffee, and begin again, slower, softer, but still moving. Because in this house, in this life, even existential tiredness doesn't stop the clock. You keep going. Because you have to. Because somehow, you always do. You eat standing up. Something cold, something beige. You don't remember cooking it. The silence feels louder now. There's a plate in your hand, a plate that has seen more use today than most pieces of your wedding china have in their entire existence. You're not sure if you reheated last night's casserole or just gave up and decided to eat it at fridge temperature. Either way, it's edible, it's here, and it's one less thing to worry about. This is what passes for lunch. Half a serving of potato something, a bite of Jell-O salad, lime of course, and an unenthusiastic celery stick left over from the last time you tried to convince yourself you liked vegetables. You scan the kitchen. Crumbs scatter the counter. A mug sits where you left it hours ago, and the clock seems to have slowed just to watch you chew. You eat standing, hips pressed to the formica, not because you're in a rush, but because you don't remember how to sit when no one's making demands of you. If you sit, you might not get up again. The phone sits silent. The radio murmurs softly, and outside the mailman does his slow procession down the block. He waves, you nod, and for a second you're both participants in this odd ritual of midday nothingness. You wonder if he's had lunch, if his is any less disappointing than yours. The house feels different at noon. The walls are too bright, the colours too harsh. The kitchen clock ticks louder, a metronome for an empty concert. You notice things you missed before, a splatter on the backsplash, a drip from the faucet, the slightly uneven line of the wallpaper where you gave up trying to match the lemons. It's a museum of effort. There's no applause. You take another bite and try to remember what your mother ate for lunch in the 1960s. Probably something similar, probably with the same sense of weary resignation. Maybe she sat. Maybe she stood too, eating over the sink while thinking of bills and dinner and the next thing on the endless list. The kitchen becomes a time machine, a place where women before you and women after you have all paused in the same quiet, uncertain moment. There's a temptation to call someone, a friend, your own mother, even the neighbour you just waved at. But you don't. There are rules, unwritten and unbreakable, about not burdening others with silence or small sadnesses. Besides, you're not sure what you'd say. I ate cold casserole today and I think the wallpaper's judging me. It wouldn't translate. Instead, you finish your lunch. The taste is nondescript, a flavour you could only describe as afternoon. You scrape the plate, rinse it in the sink, and let the water run longer than necessary, watching the suds swirl down the drain. You catch your reflection in the window, unremarkable, but still here, still upright, still feeding yourself even when no one's watching. You wonder if it will always be like this, if, in 50 years, someone will stand in a different kitchen, eating something equally uninspiring, and wonder about you. You hope, for their sake, they sit down and use a real fork. The silence expands as you finish. It's not lonely exactly, but it isn't comfortable. It's just there, like another chore, another thing to manage. You wipe down the counter, adjust the salt shaker, straighten the tea towel. You take one last look at the clock. Time to move on. Lunch is over. The house waits for you to do the next thing. You sigh deep and slow and start the afternoon's work, carrying the hush of this solitary meal with you, a quiet badge of survival in a world built on motion and noise. You turn on the TV. The women on screen cry beautifully about problems worse than yours, but somehow easier to watch. For 30 minutes, you disappear into someone else's life. The familiar theme song bubbles out of the tiny speaker, transporting you from your antiseptic bright kitchen to a place where the drama is always big, the stakes always personal, and the hair is always perfectly set. You lower yourself onto the couch with a soft sigh, hands still damp from rinsing your lunch plate. For a few precious minutes, you're not a 1960s mother in curlers and house slippers. You're a silent observer in a world where even disaster looks glamorous. On screen, a woman clutches a handkerchief, her mascara miraculously untouched by tears. She's just discovered her husband's affair with her twin sister, who, spoiler alert, was presumed dead until last week's cliffhanger. You watch her collapse on a velvet chaise lounge in a room big enough to host the entire PTA and their casseroles. The camera lingers on her suffering, as if inviting you to compare your pain to hers. You do, and hers wins. At least she gets background music. The lines are delivered with perfect diction and dramatic pauses. Nobody on TV has to repeat themselves to a child who pretends not to hear. Nobody is interrupted by the sound of a dog chasing a squirrel through the backyard. The problems here are Shakespearean, but the solutions are always just a monologue away. If only real life came with a script. You watch, transfixed, as a parade of characters falls in and out of love, gets amnesia, swaps babies, and delivers withering one-liners. The arguments are fiery, the reconciliations tearful, the betrayals always accompanied by a swell of strings. You nod along, a silent member of the studio audience, finding a strange comfort in the fact that everyone here is much worse at managing their lives than you are. In this world, nobody worries about what's for dinner, or how many pills it takes to get through the week, or whether anyone will notice the unmatched socks. The only laundry anyone does is airing it on national television. You sit still as a statue, the only evidence of life the rise and fall of your chest and the occasional clink of a coffee cup. For 30 minutes, you belong to this other world, a place where being overwhelmed is interesting, not invisible. The commercials come as a rude awakening. Suddenly you're being sold dish soap, instant pudding, and the notion that happiness is a clean toilet. You watch these mini-dramas with the same detached fascination, marvelling at the ease with which TV mothers eradicate stains and host dinner parties with a single spritz of air freshener. You half expect the soap opera heroine to step through the screen and offer to clean your kitchen. As the show builds toward its inevitable cliffhanger, you feel the spell beginning to break. You glance at the clock. The house hasn't moved, but the to-do list has grown longer in your absence. The phone rings, distant and unanswered. A car door slams outside, bringing you back to earth. When the credits roll, you let out a sigh, a little lighter, a little less alone. The problems on screen may be ridiculous, but at least someone is listening. Someone, somewhere, is writing stories about women who are overwhelmed, women who make mistakes, women who cry in public and don't apologize. You turn off the TV, feeling the echo of the drama settle around you like a silk scarf. For a moment, you feel seen in ways you can't quite explain. You get up, brush imaginary crumbs from your lap, and return to your own unscripted afternoon, ready, at least for now, to be the heroine of your own ordinary, quietly heroic life. Your eyes feel heavy, your thoughts blur. The pill bottle waits patiently. You hesitate, then you don't. The afternoon slump doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in slowly, like a fog rolling across a quiet street. First your eyelids start to droop, then your focus softens, and suddenly the idea of standing upright feels like a personal insult. The house is warm now, too warm, sealed up tight with lemon-scented air and ambition. Even the sunlight feels tired, stretched thin across the carpet like it's thinking about giving up. You try to push through it. You rinse a dish that's already clean. You straighten a stack of magazines no one has read since the Nixon administration. You tell yourself this is normal. Everyone gets tired in the afternoon. This doesn't mean anything. It definitely doesn't mean what you think it means. But your body disagrees. Your limbs feel heavier, as if gravity has been quietly turned up. Thoughts drift away mid-sentence, leaving half-finished ideas floating uselessly in your head. You walk into a room and forget why you're there, then stand very still, hoping the reason will return out of politeness. The medicine cabinet is only a few steps away. You don't rush to it. That would look suspicious, even to yourself. Instead, you meander. You wipe the counter. You adjust a towel. You pause in the bathroom doorway and stare at your reflection again. Your face looks calm, almost serene, the way women are supposed to look in advertisements. You tell her you're fine, she doesn't argue. When you open the cabinet, the hinge gives a soft, familiar squeak. Inside, everything is lined up neatly. Toothpaste, aspirin, bandages, and there it is. The pill bottle, unassuming, polite, waiting its turn. It doesn't judge. It doesn't ask questions. It simply offers help. You think briefly about the doctor's voice. Confident, casual, perfectly safe, he said. Lots of women take it. You liked that part. Lots of women. It made it feel communal, normal, almost social. Like you were part of a club nobody talked about out loud. You hesitate just long enough to feel responsible. Then you twist the cap. The pill slides into your palm, small and smooth and full of promise. You swallow it with a sip of water this time because it feels more official that way, more medicinal, more controlled. You even tell yourself this will be the last one today, You say it calmly. You say it sincerely. You've said it before. As the minutes pass, the world begins to soften again. Edges blur. Sounds lose their sharpness. The refrigerator's hum becomes a lullaby instead of an accusation. Your breathing slows without being asked. This is the relief you were waiting for, the moment when the day stops pressing down so hard on your chest. You sit at the kitchen table and rest your arms on the cool surface just for a minute. The house feels farther away now, like it's happening in another room, another life. You're still here, still present, just slightly disconnected, as if someone turned the dimmer switch down on reality. The danger of this moment is how gentle it feels. Nothing dramatic happens. There's no alarm, no warning bell, just quiet, calm, the illusion of rest. You feel capable again, or at least not overwhelmed, and that feels like a victory. You don't notice how still you've become, how long you've been sitting there. The clock keeps ticking, but time doesn't quite register the way it should. Outside, the afternoon moves on without you. Somewhere, a car passes. Somewhere else, a neighbour starts dinner early. Eventually you stand, a little unsteady, and tell yourself it worked. You're fine now. You've got this. The house will wake up again soon and you'll need to be ready. For now, though, you let the quiet hold you a little longer, floating in that soft, medicated space where the world feels manageable and the cost hasn't fully come due yet. The front door slams. Chaos returns. Backpacks explode. Someone needs help immediately. You rise, steady but slow, like gravity is stronger now. You barely have time to brace yourself before the after-school storm hits. The hush of the afternoon vanishes in a single breath, replaced by the thunder of sneakers against linoleum and the shrill battle cries of children who have been quietly plotting all day. The hallway is suddenly an obstacle course. A dropped lunchbox here, a muddy shoe there, a raincoat flung with the accuracy of a medieval trebuchet. You look at the scene and realise that, once again, peace was just an intermission. The kids move through the house like a weather system, each one a small, localised tornado. They shout, they chatter, they demand snacks with the urgency of marathon runners at mile 24. There's a familiar script. One is excited about a test, one is devastated by a playground injustice, and one is just hungry enough to eat a shoe if you don't get crackers on the table in the next 30 seconds. Backpacks burst open, spilling homework, permission slips, and mysterious wads of construction paper. Someone needs help finding a pencil. Someone else needs a bandage. You survey the kitchen counter and realise that every available surface is now covered with the physical evidence of childhood. Crumbs, glue sticks, half a cookie, a spelling list written in crayon, and, inexplicably, a live caterpillar in a jar. Your movements are slower than you'd like, not from lack of will, but from the gentle gravity of the afternoon pill, still humming quietly in your bloodstream. You steady yourself on the back of a chair, offer a practiced smile, and begin the triage, band-aids first, then snacks, then the epic mediation of a sibling dispute over who accidentally deleted someone's favourite TV show on the VCR. Questions come at you from all sides. Can I go to Amy's house? Why did you put raisins in my lunch? What is the capital of Nebraska? You answer most of them. The rest are lost in the general din, which grows and recedes in waves, never quite reaching silence. You're present, but everything feels slightly distant, as if you're participating in your own life through a gentle filter. You make a snack plate, an assortment of crackers, cheese, and guilt, then pour a glass of juice for someone who immediately knocks it over. You wipe it up. No one thanks you. Someone calls from the other room that the dog has thrown up again. You'll deal with that later after you've found the missing shoe and located the math homework that's apparently been stolen by ghosts. You look at the clock and realise it's only been 17 minutes since the door opened. The sun is lower now, pouring through the window at just the right angle to highlight every fingerprint, every smudge, every imperfection. You think about pouring another cup of coffee, but there's no time. You're needed. Eventually the initial chaos settles. The kids are sprawled across the living room, arguing quietly over a board game or watching television with the focus of monks in silent meditation. You survey the aftermath: discarded jackets, crushed goldfish crackers, half-written homework, and feel the familiar ache of exhaustion. But there's a kind of comfort in the noise too. Proof that life is happening. Proof that you're in the right place, doing the work that needs to be done. You sit finally at the edge of the kitchen, letting their voices fill the house. The quiet of earlier feels like a distant memory, replaced by a messy, relentless love. You close your eyes for a moment, just long enough to catch your breath, and then you get up, ready to face whatever the next wave brings. Because it always comes, and somehow, so do you. You pull dinner from the freezer and stare at it, trying to remember when you made it. The oven warms the kitchen. The smell is familiar and deeply unexciting. It's a block of mystery encased in foil, labelled with a faded piece of masking tape. Tuna? Chicken? The handwriting offers no clues. You peel back a corner and take a cautious sniff. It's food, technically. More importantly, it's already assembled, and that means one less problem to solve at the end of a long day. The oven rattles to life, humming and clicking as it preheats. You feel a little kinship with it, slow to get going, prone to unexpected noises, and powered mostly by stubbornness. As the kitchen fills with the faint aroma of reheated carbohydrates and hope, you allow yourself a brief moment of relief. No chopping, no peeling, no elaborate recipes torn from the back of a magazine. Just you, an aluminum tray, and the gentle certainty that someone somewhere has probably eaten worse. You unwrap the casserole and slide it into the oven, tucking it away like a secret. The heat seeps into the kitchen, battling the residual cold that's crept in from the hallway. You stand in the warmth, listening to the low hiss of the gas flame and the occasional pop of bubbling cheese. For a few minutes, you can almost believe you're in control. The kitchen, for all its chaos earlier, becomes a kind of waiting room now. The clock ticks. You wipe down the counter. Again. You rearrange a row of salt and pepper shakers and survey the fridge door, its surface covered in notes, coupons, and faded Polaroids. Someone's math test, someone else's macaroni art, and a grocery list for next week's meals, almost all of which will be assembled in some form of casserole. As the oven does its work, the kids drift through asking what's for dinner. You answer casserole and they groan in unison. It's a sound you've come to expect, a daily ritual of disappointment that always ends the same way. Everyone eats, nobody thanks you, and there are at least 3 leftovers no one will claim. You smile and promise dessert, even though you haven't decided if you have the energy to produce one. You check the casserole halfway through, poking at it with a wooden spoon to see if it's thawed in the middle. Steam billows out, fogging your glasses and filling the kitchen with a scent that could be described as generic 1960s dinner. It's a blend of cream, of mushroom soup, processed cheese, and whatever optimism survived the last 10 minutes. You remember a magazine promising that casseroles would bring families together. You suspect it was written by someone who's never actually tried to scrape burnt cheese from the corners of a Pyrex dish. Time slows down as you wait for the timer to ring. You flip through a magazine but can't focus. The radio plays quietly, offering weather updates and reminders that tomorrow will be more of the same. You watch the sun slip lower through the kitchen window, painting everything in gold and shadows. When the oven finally dings, you pull out the casserole with a sigh, setting it on the stovetop like a priced catch. It's bubbling, golden, probably a little overcooked on the edges. You serve it onto plates, the portions generous, the presentation minimal. The kids assemble at the table, eyes rolling, spoons clinking. As everyone digs in, you marvel at the power of a single dish to feed so many. To turn leftovers and guesswork into something resembling a meal. It's not exciting, it's not new, but it's warm, it's enough. And tonight that's exactly what you need it to be. Everyone eats, no one is happy, someone complains, someone spills something. You chew silently, counting minutes until bedtime. Dinner in the 1960s is less a meal and more a stage production, one where you play cook, server, peacekeeper and audience all at once. The table is set, but there's no guarantee it will stay that way. Forks clatter against chipped plates, napkins are immediately stained, and someone always insists the peas are touching the potatoes as if this is a personal affront. The casserole you rescued from the freezer is now the subject of intense scrutiny. One child pokes at it suspiciously, another smothers it in ketchup, and the third simply stares, as if hoping it will morph into pizza through the sheer force of willpower. Your husband says it's fine, which in the language of family dinners means I will eat this, but I will not enjoy it, and I expect applause for my effort. You remind everyone to say grace. And for a fleeting moment there's silence, a rare, shimmering thing that vanishes as soon as someone remembers they forgot to do their homework. Questions erupt mid-bite. What's in this? Why does it taste weird? Are there mushrooms? You explain the ingredients with the kind of vague optimism found in 1960s cookbooks. It's casserole. Just casserole. This is both a recipe and a warning. Someone tips over a glass of milk, which instantly travels the length of the table, soaking bread, papers, and a homework assignment. The family leaps into action, more coordinated than at any other time of day, tossing napkins at the spill while the dog appears out of nowhere to clean up the evidence. You take a deep breath and stare into your own plate, wondering if anyone in history has ever gotten through dinner without a liquid disaster. The conversation veers wildly. Someone recounts an epic playground injustice. Another debates the nutritional merits of eating only the crispy topping. Your husband grumbles about work, about traffic, about the price of gasoline. You nod at all the right moments, but your mind drifts, half listening, half wishing you were anywhere else. Maybe alone in a quiet cafe, maybe even just in the garage with a magazine and nobody asking for seconds. You catch yourself counting the minutes until bedtime, mentally ticking off every step. Clear the dishes, oversee homework, referee at least one sibling argument, wrangle children into pajamas, negotiate with a small terrorist about toothbrushing, and then, finally, the sweet oblivion of a closed door and silent house. The clock above the stove moves impossibly slow, as if the universe itself is conspiring to stretch this meal into infinity. Somewhere in the chaos you notice the little things, the way your youngest lines up peas on the edge of the plate, the way your oldest tries to sneak a book under the table, your husband's fork tapping out an anxious rhythm. You remember that dinners like this are both ordinary and someday will be precious. Or so people say. Right now you'd settle for uneventful. Dessert is offered as a peace treaty. Ice cream or pudding. Something easy, something sweet, something that doesn't require negotiation. It buys you a few minutes of quiet, broken only by the scraping of spoons and the occasional sigh of contentment. For a moment, it almost feels like the commercials promised. Everyone together, sharing a meal, basking in the gentle glow of family harmony. The moment doesn't last, but you take it anyway. As the plates empty and chairs scrape back, you begin clearing the table. No one thanks you. They scatter, disappearing into other rooms and other worlds. You look at the mess, the crumbs, the half-eaten casserole and sigh. Another dinner survived. Another day, nearly done. You gather the dishes, stack them in the sink and think, just for a second, about tomorrow's dinner. But that's a problem for future you. Tonight you made it through the performance. The curtain falls and you step off stage, applause or not. You wash dishes while the family drifts away. The water is hot. Your thoughts are not. This is your life, and it's strangely quiet inside. The kitchen empties with military efficiency. Chairs scrape, laughter fades, and footsteps echo down the hall, marking the nightly migration to television, bedrooms, or any place that doesn't require scraping hardened casserole from a plate. You stay behind, a lone sentry in a domestic battlefield, surrounded by crumbs, glasses, and a sea of forks that seem to multiply nightly. You run the tap, letting the water scald your hands, more for the feeling than the cleanliness. The bubbles rise, an illusion of abundance promising to erase evidence of dinner and maybe the fatigue you're carrying. The sink fills with dishes, some stacked, some hidden beneath napkins or abandoned vegetables, as if a well-placed carrot could disappear if ignored long enough. You scrub with the kind of determination that used to mean something. Now, it's just another rhythm, another piece of choreography learned by heart. You've become an expert at stacking plates, balancing cups, maximizing the drying rack in a feat of physics that would impress NASA. Soap suds drift up your arms, sleeves perpetually wet, an unglamorous badge of honor. Outside the kitchen, the house hums with other people's lives, the muffled blare of television, the thump of a drawer closing, snippets of conversation carried through the hallway. You listen for your name, but it doesn't come. Not right now. They're full. They're satisfied. They're moving on. You're left with the aftermath, unseen, but necessary. Sometimes you catch your reflection in the kitchen window, blurred and ghost-like, half-lit by the overhead lamp. It's a strange thing seeing yourself so clearly while feeling so invisible. There's no applause for a sink emptied, no gold stars for getting every fork clean. The house will forget these efforts by morning, but you'll remember in the ache of your shoulders and the slight twinge in your back. The repetition is oddly comforting. Wash, rinse, stack, repeat. The clink of dishes, the squeak of the sponge, the sigh of water down the drain. You use this time to let your mind drift, to replay conversations, to rewrite the day with comebacks you'll never deliver. Maybe tomorrow you'll be wittier, more patient, less tired. Maybe tomorrow someone else will do the dishes. You smile at the thought, the way you might smile at a child's fantasy about living on the moon. You finish plates and start on glasses, swirling suds around the rims, inspecting for smudges only you will notice. You wonder if anyone would even care if you left the dishes for the morning. But you won't. You know the power of waking up to a clean kitchen, the way it makes the morning seem just a little less overwhelming. This, you remind yourself, is a gift to your future self, a silent note that says, you tried, you cared. Eventually the sink empties. The last pot is rinsed, the last fork laid on the rack to dry. You drain the water, wipe down the counters and hang the dish towel just so. The kitchen, for one brief, shining moment, is spotless. You pause, taking in the order, the gleam, the faint scent of lemon. Then you turn off the light, stepping quietly out of the kitchen. Your footsteps are soft and the house doesn't notice your exit. But you do. You move through the rooms, invisible but vital, a quiet presence holding everything together, one clean dish at a time. And as you join the others, finally, quietly, and without fanfare, you carry that small, invisible accomplishment with you, knowing it matters, even if no one else sees it. A cocktail appears. It's well earned, you tell yourself. Alcohol mixes gently with medication, in a way no one warned you about. You didn't plan to drink tonight, well, you never really do, but somehow, the clink of ice in the glass is as much a part of your evening as the soft rattle of the pill bottle or the distant drone of the evening news. The ritual is almost elegant. The bottle comes out from its hiding place behind the flour canister. The glass is filled, a careful pour, a twist of something citrus. This is your moment. Small and secret, tucked into the folds of a day spent giving yourself away in increments. There's a kind of relief in the first sip. Sharp, clean, efficient. The day's noise recedes just a bit. The edges of memory and worry blurring like watercolour left out in the rain. You savour the warmth as it travels down, landing in the pit of your stomach with the comforting weight of permission. You earned this, after all. You made it through another dinner, another round of dishes, another marathon of invisible labour. The least you can do is reward yourself with a little anaesthesia. You lean back in your chair, legs curled beneath you, glass resting loosely in your hand. The house is alive but softer now. Children's voices muffled behind closed doors, the hum of the refrigerator, the static from a forgotten TV left on in the other room. It's quieter, not because life has stopped, but because you finally, mercifully stopped listening so hard. It's almost meditative, this gentle letting go. You find yourself breathing deeper, letting your shoulders drop, letting the tension leak out through your fingertips. You wonder if your mother did this too, if she found the end of the day smoothed out by gin or sherry or something equally clandestine. Back then, nobody talked about coping mechanisms. They just called them habits. You take another sip, feeling the world tilt slightly, the distance between you and everything else widening just enough to feel safe. The worries still exist. The bills, the PTA meeting, the suspicious noise the car has started making. But they're muted now. Background actors on the far edge of your consciousness. You can almost imagine a different version of yourself. A woman who comes home to a perfectly clean house. A woman who sits on velvet furniture and drinks for pleasure, not necessity. The drink is nearly gone before you realise how much you were counting on it to soften the landing. You swirl the last inch of liquid, watching the light bounce off the glass. You know this isn't a solution, not really. You know the combination of alcohol and medication is its own quiet risk, one no one warned you about because everyone is pretending not to notice. The 1960s are very good at pretending. Still, the moment is yours. You give yourself permission to not solve, not fix, not plan, just to sit, just to be. It's a form of self-care, even if it comes with consequences you'd rather not name. You look down at the empty glass, the ice now melting fast, and consider a second. Sometimes you indulge, sometimes you don't. Tonight you decide one is enough. The evening stretches out ahead, calm and blurry. There's still bedtime to oversee, still loose ends to tie up, but for now, you let yourself linger in this gentle limbo. You stand, set the glass in the sink and pad quietly down the hall, feeling a little less sharp, a little less overwhelmed. For a brief golden moment you're light enough to float above it all, weightless, suspended between duty and desire, carried by the hush of alcohol and the strange, silent comfort of a job that never truly ends. The family watches TV together. Laugh tracks tell you when to smile. You do. You settle onto the sofa, the fabric scratchy beneath your legs, your shoulders still damp from dishwater and the evening's small exertions. The children arrange themselves like puppies, squabbling briefly over who gets the good spot closest to the screen, then falling silent as the familiar theme music rolls in. Your husband sinks into his chair with a sigh, newspaper abandoned, his tie already loosened, a sure sign that the day is officially done. The television flickers in the dim room, casting everyone in shades of blue and grey. The living room is transformed. You're no longer a mother, a chef, a crisis negotiator. For 30 minutes you're an audience, bathed in the soft, forgiving glow of make-believe. The laugh track rolls like a gentle tide, cueing smiles and sighs, smoothing the rough edges of a day that didn't quite go as planned. The shows are all the same. Families who bicker but always make up by the end. Neighbours who come in without knocking. Children who never spill anything and only get in trouble for the most adorable of reasons. No one on screen seems tired. No one on screen seems worried about tomorrow or bills or casseroles or whether the car will start. Their houses are spotless, their problems simple, their resolutions always delivered by the third commercial break. Your own children watch, eyes wide, their laughter just a beat behind the studio audience. Sometimes they glance at you, waiting to see if something is funny, looking for confirmation that this is the right moment to laugh. You oblige, letting the laughter bubble up, genuine or not. It's enough. The ritual is familiar, comforting, safe. Your husband occasionally offers a commentary on the absurdity of the plots, a groan at a bad pun, a chuckle when the father character fumbles a home repair. You listen, half interested, half asleep, letting his words wash over you like another background noise. You wonder if he's really watching the show, or if, like you, He's just grateful for the chance to turn off his brain and drift a while. The commercials roll in, a parade of detergent, toothpaste, and modern convenience. Each ad promises a solution, a shortcut, a way to make your life brighter, cleaner, simpler. You watch with the practiced skepticism of someone who's tried them all and learned that sometimes the best you can do is keep the stains at bay until tomorrow. Your children beg for toys you can't afford, cereals you'll never buy. You smile and nod, making mental notes you'll never write down. You notice, as the evening stretches, how the TV's glow has a softening effect on everyone. Arguments fade. Annoyances are forgotten. The day's disappointments blur at the edges, replaced by canned laughter and easy resolution. There is peace, or at least a truce, declared by the shared rhythm of the family's laughter and the soothing cadence of predictable endings. You feel yourself slipping into a comfortable haze, half awake, your head lolling against the sofa cushion. The show drifts on, the plot spinning in gentle circles. You let your mind wander, thinking of nothing and everything. Your hand finds a child's head, absently smoothing hair, holding on to the moment. When the final credits roll and the television goes quiet, there's a gentle pause, a beat where no one quite wants to move, not just yet. The glow lingers, fading slowly, and the room settles into darkness. You gather the children, guide them toward bed, already missing the weight of them beside you. For a little while the world feels lighter, softer, painted in the pastel tones of TV families who never forget to laugh. You turn out the light, close the living room door, and step back into your own life, half awake, but smiling, ready for whatever comes next. Children are tucked in, lights go out. You kiss foreheads and promise tomorrow will be better. The bedtime ritual is a nightly odyssey. It begins with the announcement, gentle at first, then gradually louder as the children pretend not to hear. The resistance is immediate and unified. Protests about thirst, hunger, unfinished homework, lost toys, and the sudden, urgent need to discuss the mysteries of the universe arise in a chorus. You herd them to the bathroom, where teeth are brushed with theatrical groans and faces are washed with as little water as humanly possible. Pyjamas are located after a short search and rescue mission through hampers, under beds, and occasionally in the dog's possession. Arguments break out about who gets the good pillow and which blanket is too scratchy or too cold or smells like Dad's socks. You referee with the exhausted patience of someone who knows that victory is measured not in quiet but in progress. Finally, you shepherd the kids to their respective beds. The rooms are dim and quiet, the air heavy with the scent of powder and childhood. You pull the covers up to their chins, smoothing out invisible worries. For a moment they are still, small faces looking up at you with the expectation that you will make everything safe, everything easy. You oblige, weaving bedtime stories from memory, inventing adventures with talking dogs and secret forests, your voice dropping to a soothing hush. There are more requests, another glass of water, just one more story, a check for monsters in the closet. You comply with most of them. This is the time of day when you can afford a little extra kindness, even if you're running on fumes. You stroke hair, rub small backs, promise that, yes, you'll check under the bed for the 5th time because that's what mothers do, even if they're secretly more afraid of the electric bill than imaginary creatures. You kiss each forehead, lingering a moment longer on the child who needed more hugs, whispering encouragement to the one who struggled through a hard day. The oldest asks quietly if tomorrow will be less busy, if there will be time to play after school. You promise it will, knowing the odds are slim, but the hope is necessary. These are the promises you offer without any guarantees, the quiet bargains you make with the future in the dark. The lights go out. The rooms become silent islands in the sea of the house. You pause in the hallway, listening for the settling creak of beds, the soft exhale of sleep. For a brief moment the world feels manageable, contained within the safe borders of tucked blankets and drawn shades. This is your kingdom, and for now, everyone is accounted for. You return to the living room, picking up stray socks and abandoned toys with practiced efficiency. The house is quieter now, but it's not your quiet, not yet. There are still lunches to prep, forms to sign, the day's debris to clear away. You move through the motions with the slow grace of someone winding down a clock. As you finish, you pause outside each door, listening for the sound of even breathing, the small murmurs of children dreaming. You think about the promises you made, the reassurances you whispered in the dark. Tomorrow will be better. It's the same thing your mother told you, the same thing her mother told her, a lullaby for tired parents and anxious children everywhere. You head toward your own bedroom, lights dimmed, house finally still. The day is over for everyone else. For a moment you let yourself believe in those promises too, that tomorrow really will be better. That sometimes hope is the last thing you tuck in before sleep. You change into a nightgown and stand in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. Another pill, just to be safe. The house is finally silent. Properly silent, not just quiet. The kind of silence that feels vast and unnatural after a day of noise, chaos, and the constant tug of small hands. You close the door behind you and stand for a moment in the fluorescent hush of the bathroom. The light humming overhead, your reflection flickering slightly in the old silvered glass. Your nightgown is soft, washed thin from years of use, a fabric memory of calmer days. You study the woman in the mirror, a face softened by fatigue, eyes rimmed with the faintest trace of mascara, hair flattened by hair rollers and time. She looks familiar but distant, like a character in a movie you watched once and never quite forgot. You run a hand over your face, feeling the pull of the day and the lines at the corners of your eyes, the set of your jaw. You try a smile. It's almost convincing. You open the medicine cabinet with hands that remember every motion. There are bottles lined up like sentinels. Aspirin, toothpaste, cold cream, Nembutal. You pause for a second, the smallest flicker of doubt crossing your mind. Then you take the pill, swallowing it with a gulp of lukewarm water. It slides down easily. By now, your body barely registers the ritual. It's just something you do, like brushing your teeth or winding the alarm clock. You linger in the bathroom, moving through the old familiar routine. Face washed, teeth brushed, hair unpinned and combed. The motions are gentle, careful, as if tending to a fragile thing, except that thing is you. The floor is cool beneath your feet, the air tinged with powder and the faint trace of floral air freshener. You hang your robe on the hook and listen to the house breathe. Pipes settling, fridge humming, the gentle tick of the hallway clock. In the bedroom, the lamp on your nightstand casts a soft yellowed glow. You slip between cool sheets, pulling the covers up, letting the day slide off your shoulders piece by piece. Your husband is already asleep, turned away, mouth slightly open, breathing deep and regular. You watch him for a moment, wondering if his dreams are lighter than yours. You envy the ease with which he drifts off. No pills, no rituals, just the simple exhaustion of a man whose burdens are mostly silent. You lie back, staring at the ceiling. The pill is working now, your body relaxing into the mattress, each limb sinking deeper. Your thoughts swirl in slow, lazy circles. Did you sign the permission slip? Did you unplug the iron? Did you say goodnight to everyone? You run through the checklist until the words blur into a gentle static, a soft white noise in your mind. The house feels impossibly big at night. Every sound is magnified. The creak of the floorboards, the distant bark of a dog, the low, persistent hum of the world outside. You close your eyes and listen, willing your heart to slow, your breathing to even out, the last traces of anxiety to ebb away. You tell yourself you deserve this rest, that it's safe to let go for a while. Just a few hours, you promise, just until morning. As sleep steals over you, you feel yourself dissolving, boundaries softening, the sharp edges of the day rounding out. You float, untethered, in that gentle space between awake and asleep, grateful for the brief mercy of oblivion. The last thing you hear is your own quiet exhale, a tiny act of surrender, a whisper of hope that tomorrow will be kinder. And then, finally you let go. You lie down. The ceiling fades. Sleep doesn't drift in, it crashes. It hits you faster than it should. One moment you're aware of the faint pattern in the plaster above your bed. The next, it's dissolving into something soft and indistinct, like fog rolling over a familiar street. There's no long negotiation with your thoughts tonight. No replaying conversations. No inventory of worries. Your mind doesn't wander, it simply powers down. Your body sinks into the mattress as if it's been waiting for permission all day. Muscles loosen, fingers curl. The weight you've been carrying from morning to night, from room to room, slides off you without ceremony. This is what rest is supposed to feel like, you think, right before thinking stops altogether. The pillar's done its work efficiently, almost eagerly. Your breathing slows, deepens, becomes something automatic and distant. You're aware, dimly, of your husband's steady rhythm beside you, the rise and fall of his chest like a metronome set to a calmer life. The house exhales around you, pipes tick, the refrigerator hums. Somewhere the world keeps turning, but you're no longer required to participate. Sleep takes you in layers, first the body, then the thoughts, then the last thin thread of awareness. There are no dreams yet, just a heavy enveloping darkness that presses gently from all sides. It's not frightening, it's comforting, like sinking into warm water and letting yourself float without effort. This is the dangerous part, though you don't know it. The ease of it. The way sleep arrives not as a reward, but as a certainty. You don't have to work for it, you don't have to earn it. It simply happens to you, swift and complete, as if your body has learned that this is the fastest way out. Somewhere in your fading consciousness there's a flicker of recognition. This feels deeper than usual, quieter. You try to surface just a little, to roll onto your side or adjust the blanket, but the thought dissolves before it becomes action. Your limbs are heavy now, wonderfully heavy. The idea of moving feels unnecessary. The house is still. The children sleep down the hall, tangled in blankets, dreaming their uncomplicated dreams. Tomorrow's lunches, tomorrow's laundry, tomorrow's promises all wait patiently for you to wake up and begin again. There's no urgency now, no expectation. No one needs you in this moment. Your breathing grows slower, softer, each inhale stretching longer than the last. The space between breaths widens, not enough to alarm you, just enough to notice if you are still noticing things. But you aren't. You're drifting further away from the edges of yourself, deeper into the dark. Sleep wraps around you like a blanket pulled too high, too snug. It's peaceful here, silent, safe. The kind of rest you've been craving all day, all week, all year. You don't fight it. Why would you? You've been told this is good for you, necessary, deserved, and so you sink, deeper still, into a sleep that comes without resistance, without interruption, without dreams to mark the passing of time. The ceiling is gone now. The room is gone. Even the gentle awareness of your own body begins to blur. Sleep has arrived completely. And for the first time all day, you are doing absolutely nothing at all. Your body slows, breathing deepens, no dreams come. This is what rest feels like now. It's a different kind of sleep than you remember from years ago. Not the light, flickering kind that drifts in and out, interrupted by worries and half-formed thoughts. This sleep is thick, dense. It presses down gently, like a heavy quilt tucked too tightly around your shoulders. You don't float through it, you sink. Your chest rises and falls in long, deliberate movements, each breath slower than the last. The space between them stretches comfortably, luxuriously. There's no urgency here. No need to adjust, no instinct to turn over or pull the blanket higher. Your body has decided this is enough. This is sufficient. There are no dreams waiting for you. No half-remembered conversations or strange images to puzzle over later. Just darkness. Smooth and uninterrupted. It's not frightening. It's quiet. The kind of quiet you've been chasing all day, all week, all year. The kind that doesn't ask anything of you. Your limbs are warm and heavy, as if they've been set gently into place. Fingers loosen. Jaw slackens. Even the small tensions you didn't realize you were holding finally let go. The exhaustion that lived in your bones has found somewhere to settle. Somewhere deep and still. The house remains unchanged around you. Down the hall, children sleep curled in improbable shapes, their dreams busy and bright. Outside, a car passes, tires whispering against pavement. Somewhere far away, a train horn sounds, long and low, then fades. None of it reaches you. The world has learned how to exist without your attention. This is the comfort no one warned you about. Not the pill, not the drink, but the way they work together to smooth everything out. The way sleep stops being something you enter and starts being something that takes you. Efficiently, thoroughly, kindly. Your body responds exactly as it's been trained to. Heartbeat slowing, muscles slack, systems powering down one by one, like lights in a house at night. Nothing alarms you. Nothing signals danger. There's no pain, no struggle, no moment where you think something is wrong. That's the most unsettling part. How ordinary it feels. You don't wake to roll over. You don't stir at a sound. The subtle signals that usually tug you back toward the surface simply don't arrive. Your body continues on its quiet path deeper into rest, farther away from interruption. If you were awake, you might notice how long it's been since you last shifted. If you were paying attention, you might realize how shallow the space between breaths has become. But you aren't awake, and you aren't paying attention, you're resting. This is what everyone wanted for you, what doctors promised, what advertisements implied, a full night's sleep, uninterrupted, complete. The kind of rest that solves everything, and in the stillness there's no fear, no regret, no unfinished to-do list tapping at the edges of your mind. Tomorrow doesn't exist here. Morning isn't pressing in. There is only now, long, dark, and very, very quiet. Your body continues its slow descent, wrapped in comfort, insulated from worry. Nothing wakes you. Nothing calls you back. This is what rest feels like now, and it feels almost too good to leave. The house waits for you to wake up. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Morning arrives the same way it always does, softly at first. Pale light creeps around the edges of the curtains. The refrigerator hums back to life with renewed purpose. Somewhere outside, a bird announces itself, unaware that this morning may not be like the others. The house assumes you'll be up soon. It always does. The clock keeps time faithfully. The alarm is set just in case. It waits patiently on the nightstand, prepared to ring and be silenced with a familiar half-awake slap of your hand. The children's rooms remain quiet. They trust the morning. They trust you. Minutes pass. Then more. Your husband shifts beside you, still asleep, still wrapped in the uncomplicated confidence that tomorrow is a given. The house holds its breath, not in alarm but in habit. Pipes warm. Light changes. The world outside moves forward without checking in. Down the hall, a child stirs, rolling over, mumbling something into a pillow. Another clutches a blanket tighter, lost in a dream that assumes breakfast will happen on schedule. Lunches will appear. Socks will be found. The day will begin the way it always does. But in your room, nothing moves. Your body remains exactly as it was left. Still, quiet, deeply at rest. Breathing is faint now, shallow enough to escape notice. There's no drama here. No sudden moment. Just an absence of change. A stillness so complete it feels intentional, as if you finally decided to stop hurrying. The alarm clock reaches its moment. It rings. The sound cuts cleanly through the morning, sharp and insistent. It keeps ringing, filling the room, echoing against walls that are used to being answered. No hand reaches out. The sound continues, confused by its own lack of success. Eventually your husband wakes. At first it's annoyance, then confusion. He reaches over, turns off the alarm, muttering about oversleeping. He says your name casually without urgency. When you don't answer, he says it again. Louder this time. Still no response. The house shifts. Down the hall, a child calls out asking what's for breakfast. The question hangs unanswered. The quiet spreads, no longer neutral, no longer ordinary. It becomes something else entirely. Later, people will say they didn't see it coming. They'll talk about how tired you were, how much you did, how you always seemed fine. They'll find the bottles, lined up neatly, exactly where they belong. They'll count pills. They'll shake their heads. They'll use words like tragedy and accident and unfortunate combination. But right now, none of that exists. Right now the house is still waiting. Waiting for coffee to brew, for footsteps in the hallway, for a voice calling out reminders and instructions. Waiting for the woman who held it all together to wake up and begin again. Sometimes you do, and sometimes, quietly, without warning or struggle, you don't. The morning goes on anyway, and the house eventually has to learn how to wake up without you. Sometime in the afternoon you catch your reflection in a hallway mirror. For a second you barely recognize the person staring back, her hair set, her smile practiced, her eyes quietly calculating how many more days she can do this. You wonder if you're still yourself, or just a collection of chores loosely held together by tranquilizers and obligation. The mirror is narrow, slightly warped, the kind that stretches things just enough to be untrustworthy. It hangs between the bedrooms, a place you pass 12 times a day without stopping. Today, for reasons you can't explain, you pause. The woman looking back is familiar in the way a distant relative is familiar, recognizable but emotionally unclear. You tilt your head, she tilts hers. You try to remember when you last looked like you. Your hair is perfect, that's the strange part. Set carefully, sprayed into submission, every curl obeying the rules. The magazine said this mattered. Looking put together meant you were put together. The mirror confirms that you followed instructions. The surface level ones, at least. Your smile arrives automatically when you practice it. Small, polite, reassuring. It's the smile you use for neighbours, teachers, grocery clerks, and occasionally your own children when they ask questions you don't have the energy to answer. You hold it for a moment, then let it fade. Without it, your face feels unfinished, like a room without furniture. You search your own eyes for something. Excitement, curiosity, even anger, but they're busy doing math instead. Counting hours, estimating effort, calculating how long you can keep moving at this pace without something slipping. You don't know when you're in a life turned into a spreadsheet, but here you are, balancing emotional budgets no one else sees. You try to remember what you wanted before all of this, before schedules and systems and carefully labelled casseroles. Maybe there was a hobby once, maybe a thought that wasn't immediately followed by responsibility. The memories are fuzzy, like radio stations you can almost tune in but never quite reach. The hallway is quiet, too quiet. The children are gone for the moment, the house in one of its many holding patterns. You rest a hand on the wall, grounding yourself in the texture of paint and plaster. This house knows you. Every corner bears your fingerprints. And yet, standing here, you feel strangely anonymous. You realize that no one has asked you how you are today. Not because they don't care, but because the role doesn't require it. You are the infrastructure, the background system, the thing that makes everything else function smoothly. Bridges don't get asked how they're holding up. They're just expected to hold. You straighten your posture, adjust the collar of your dress, and give the mirror one last look. The woman staring back does the same. You nod at each other, an unspoken agreement passing between you. Keep going, don't make a scene. We'll deal with this later. As you walk away, the mirror returns to its usual job, reflecting motion without meaning. You move on to the next task, the next room, the next small obligation waiting patiently for you to arrive. The question lingers, though, faint but persistent. When did you become optional? The house doesn't answer, it never does. So you keep moving, carrying yourself from moment to moment, hoping that somewhere beneath the routine, beneath the roles, beneath the chemical calm, the person you used to be is still there, waiting, quiet, practicing her smile. The phone rattles on the wall, slicing through your medicated haze. It's either a telemarketer, a neighbour complaining about your hedge, or the school, never anyone you want to hear from. You answer with your polite voice and feel your real self float a little further away, like the call is happening to someone else entirely. It's a particular sound, the jarring metallic ring that echoes down the hallway, urgent and old-fashioned, impossible to ignore. You freeze for a moment, hand hovering in the air, mentally flipping through the possibilities. Maybe it's the school calling to report a fever, a forgotten permission slip, a child who said something questionable during show and tell. Maybe it's the neighbour, once again concerned that your shrub is encroaching upon her perfectly manicured lawn, or that your recycling bin is facing the wrong way. Maybe it's a voice you haven't heard in months, or a stranger with a cheerful script offering you savings you don't want. You lift the receiver, stretching the coiled cord across the kitchen, and put on your best customer service voice. Hello, this is the Your Last Name residence. The script writes itself, your tone a careful blend of apology and compliance, no matter who's on the other end. Sometimes it's the school nurse, her voice brisk and professionally sympathetic, letting you know your child threw up or fell down, or simply wasn't himself today. You make noises of concern, jot notes on the back of an envelope, and promise to come by if needed. Sometimes it's the neighbour, and you brace for the sound of her disappointment as she catalogues your sins against suburban order. You agree, you apologise, you thank her for letting you know. It's always best to keep the peace, even when you want to hang up halfway through her list. Other times it's a telemarketer. You know within the first 5 seconds, the voice too bright, the pauses too calculated. May I speak to the lady of the house? You almost laugh, but you don't. You listen to the pitch, politely decline, sometimes even let them finish just so someone can hear the sound of your voice. There are days when you wonder if anyone would notice if you stopped answering. As you talk, you can feel your own presence thinning, like you're receding behind the wallpaper. The part of you that has opinions, irritations, private jokes, that part sits quietly in the back, watching someone else handle the script. You say the right things, you don't make trouble. Your real thoughts go untouched like good china. Occasionally there's a surprise, a friend calling to check in, a voice from the past, a sliver of news that breaks the monotony. These moments are rare. You find yourself overcompensating, talking too quickly, laughing too loudly, eager for the reminder that you exist outside your own home. When the call ends, you linger with the dial tone, reluctant to return to the quiet kitchen. Most days the phone goes back on the hook and you stand for a moment untethered, staring at the floral wallpaper and the neat calendar by the fridge. The call is over, the script is done. You're left with a vague sense of having performed something necessary, something unfulfilling. You move on, returning to chores, to children, to the next demand. Your voice reverts to its usual softness, the practiced tone of someone who knows how to be agreeable. You wonder, not for the first time, if there will ever be a call you're actually waiting for. The phone stays quiet, its silence a reminder that sometimes connection only stretches you thinner. You press on, your real self floating somewhere nearby, waiting for someone to ask for her instead. Armed with a list and a coupon book, you navigate the fluorescent trenches of the A&P. The aisles are lined with canned soup and suspiciously bright gelatin. You smile at everyone, compare prices, and try not to let the sheer banality of it all swallow you whole. Somewhere between produce and the pharmacy, you wonder if you've always been this tired. The automatic doors sigh open like they know what's coming. Inside, the air is cool and smells faintly of floor cleaner and ambition. The lights hum overhead, relentless and bright, revealing every scuff on the linoleum and every tired face pushing a cart. You grab a metal basket, even though you know you'll outgrow it halfway through. Optimism dies quickly in grocery stores. The produce section greets you with piles of apples polished to a shine they never had on the tree. You squeeze one, then put it back, already thinking about how many of these will come home untouched, rolling sadly in the crisper drawer until next week. Lettuce looks limp. Tomatoes are either rock hard or quietly collapsing. You choose the least disappointing options and move on. You pass other women like yourself, hair set, lipstick applied, expressions neutral. You exchange nods and tight smiles, the unspoken acknowledgement of shared duty. No one lingers. Lingering suggests leisure, and this is not a place for leisure. This is a mission. The aisles stretch on, each one offering a different version of convenience. Canned soups promising warmth and nourishment. Boxes of cereal featuring cartoon mascots who look suspiciously well rested. Rows of gelatin in colours that don't exist in nature, smiling up at you like they know something you don't. You pause to compare prices, coupon book open, lips moving silently as you do the math. Save 3 cents here, spend 20 more somewhere else. It all balances out to exhaustion. You add cream of mushroom soup to the cart without thinking. It's the backbone of dinner, the secret ingredient in everything. You wonder if your children will ever realise how much of their childhood was built on condensed soup and quiet resignation. Probably not. They'll remember the dinners, not the effort. Further down the aisle, you spot a display of frozen dinners, each one promising ease and satisfaction. You consider grabbing one just in case. Then you imagine the guilt. The raised eyebrows, the internal lecture about doing better. You move on, cart rattling slightly with each step. The pharmacy section is impossible to avoid. Aspirin, cold remedies, sleep aids. The shelves are neatly stocked, labels friendly and reassuring. You feel a strange pull here, a gravitational tug toward the promise of relief. You scan the options, even though you already have what you need at home. Maybe you'll just browse, just to see what's new. A clerk asks if you need help. You smile automatically and say no, thank you. Your voice sounds cheerful, detached. You wonder if anyone here would notice if you simply stopped smiling. The thought passes quickly. Smiling is easier. At the checkout, you unload the cart item by item, watching the conveyor belt carry your week forward. Bread, milk, soup, cookies, something green to justify the rest. The cashier chats about the weather, about how busy it's been. You nod and respond in the appropriate places. Your mind drifts, already planning dinner, already tired of tomorrow. As you leave, bags cutting into your hands, you catch your reflection in the glass doors. For a moment, you don't recognize yourself again. Then the doors open, the light shifts, and you're back in the parking lot loading groceries into the trunk. The errand is complete. The gauntlet survived. You sit behind the wheel for a moment before starting the car, hands resting on the steering wheel, breathing in the quiet. Just another task finished. Just another week stocked. You pull out of the lot, already wondering how long it will be before you're back here again. You open a book, determined to have me time, but your eyes can barely track the words. The sentences blur into soft nonsense. You reread the same paragraph 6 times and finally give up, surrendering to the gravitational pull of your pillow and that one last pill. It always starts with good intentions. You've picked a book that promises little escape, a novel about faraway places, clever people, or impossible mysteries. You slide into bed, adjust your pillows to the perfect angle, and settle under the covers, determined to claim a corner of the night for yourself. Just a chapter, you tell yourself. Maybe 2. This is self-care, the experts say. Time just for you. The first page is promising. The words are familiar. The story a soft backdrop to the end of a noisy day. You imagine yourself as one of those women in the magazine ad, smiling, serene, bathed in the soft light of a bedside lamp, turning pages while the world falls gently away. The real scene is less glamorous. A worn paperback with a bent spine, sheets that still smell faintly of bleach, and a light bulb with a persistent low buzz. You try to focus, but your eyes grow heavier with each line. The story, so vivid a moment ago, dissolves into a jumble of half-finished thoughts and dream fragments. You squint, blink hard, and reread the same sentence for the third, no, fourth time. A character says something important. You nod, impressed. You have no idea what they said. The house is quiet except for the tick of the bedside clock and the soft shifting of your husband as he falls into his usual snoring routine. You shift too, searching for a comfortable position, adjusting the book, tucking the covers just so. For a brief second, you find a rhythm. The sentences start to flow. The story takes shape and then gone. Your mind drifts to grocery lists, the forgotten laundry, the birthday party you have to plan but haven't started. The story waits patiently, willing to be rediscovered, but you're already somewhere else. You turn the page, only to realize you haven't actually read anything. You flip back, try again, tell yourself you'll get it this time. 5 more lines, 2 more, your eyelids droop. The book tilts dangerously toward your chest. If you were to let go, it would fall with a soft thud, lost somewhere in the covers until morning. You look at the clock. Later than you thought. The page in front of you remains stubbornly unreadable, a wall of words behind foggy glass. You sigh, close the book, and place it on the nightstand where all good intentions go to sleep. Maybe tomorrow, you think. Maybe tomorrow you'll get through a chapter, or a paragraph, or a single sentence without drifting off. You reach for your glass of water, take a small sip and glance at the pill bottle. Just one more, just to be safe. The familiar routine plays out. The twist of the cap, the small white tablet in your palm, the quick swallow. The room grows softer around the edges, the bed impossibly welcoming, the world shrinking to a cocoon of sheets and pillows and the faint scent of sleep. You sink back, the weight of the day finally settling. Your book waits on the nightstand, the bookmark a gentle accusation. You close your eyes, already half asleep, the words from the page trailing you down into the gentle dark. Maybe tomorrow you'll read. Tonight, it's enough just to rest, to let go, to stop trying. The story will wait. For now, you give in, letting yourself drift, surrendering to the quiet, forgiving hush of almost sleep. As the week loops on, every day feels suspiciously similar. You measure time by empty coffee cups, soap opera plot lines, and the number of pills left in the bottle. Sometimes it feels like life is happening in a haze, like you're stuck between waking and dreaming, and the calendar keeps flipping with no one really in charge. Monday bleeds into Tuesday, which blends seamlessly into Thursday. You're sure you lost Wednesday somewhere between folding laundry and refilling a prescription. The days are stitched together by routines so ingrained, you barely notice you're moving through them. Wake up, coffee, pills, toast, find socks, repeat. Somewhere in there, children grow taller, husbands get more set in their ways, and the refrigerator collects new magnets advertising plumbers you'll never call. Each morning starts the same. You open your eyes and, for a split second, try to remember what day it is. The sunlight is always a little too bright, the house a little too quiet, the to-do list waiting, eager and hungry. You glance at the kitchen calendar, a cheerful affair with kittens or wildflowers or inspirational quotes, and wonder if anyone has ever actually read the fine print about Arbor Day. Appointments, school events, and reminders are scribbled in the margins, but you know the real clock is inside you, ticking softly with every task completed and every cup drained. Soap operas anchor your afternoons. Their plots cycle endlessly, affairs, amnesia, babies switched at birth, and sometimes you wonder if your own life is following a script you never agreed to. You laugh at the dramatic reveals and gasp at the betrayals, but there's comfort in their predictability. In a world where everything seems to shift, at least someone is guaranteed to slap someone else by the third commercial break. You try to find small variations, little things to mark one day from the next. A different shade of nail polish, a new recipe clipped from a magazine, a brief and futile attempt to organise the linen closet. But the changes don't stick. The towels go back to chaos. The casserole tastes the same. Your nails chip before dinner. Still, you try. You have to try. If you didn't, you might forget how to be surprised at all. The kids notice sometimes and ask what's for dinner as if the answer might be different tonight. You tell them casserole, and they groan in perfect unison. Even the dog has learned the rhythm, appearing in the kitchen right before you drop a scrap and retreating when you start humming the theme song to As the World Turns. The repetition is comforting and maddening all at once. Night arrives, and you count out pills from the bottle, mentally tracking how many days until you need a refill. The number is always lower than you expect, a gentle reminder of how many evenings have blurred by. Your hands move on their own. Water, pill, light switch, bed. The quiet returns, thick and undisturbed, settling into the corners like dust. Weekends offer no relief, just a slightly altered script. More people underfoot, more dishes, more chaos, but still the same anchor points. Coffee, chores, and the never-ending hum of everything that's still undone. You catch yourself watching the clock, not waiting for anything in particular, just watching to see that time is in fact moving. Sometimes, in the lull between tasks, you wonder if you're awake or dreaming. If all these days are actually passing, or if you're simply marking time until something changes. The calendar pages turn, coffee cups pile up, soap opera characters live and die and return from the dead, and you, still here, still doing, float somewhere in the middle, an anchor in a sea of sameness, and yet somehow you keep going. The world spins, the pills run out, the calendar flips, you start again. Not because it's easy, but because it's what you do, what everyone does, even when nobody seems to be in charge. So tonight, as the house finally grows quiet and the day drifts away, you can take a moment to reflect on what it took just to get through an ordinary day in the 1960s. Not a dramatic day, not a headline-making day, just a regular one. A day filled with noise, responsibility, expectations, and a kind of exhaustion that never quite went away. You survived a world that demanded perfection while offering very little support. A world where stress didn't have a name, sadness didn't have a language, and help often came in the form of a prescription instead of understanding. You held everything together with routine, politeness, and pills that promised rest but sometimes delivered something far more dangerous. And yet, there was resilience there, real resilience, in the way meals still appeared on the table, in the way children were tucked in at night, in the way mornings kept happening, even when sleep was shallow or came too easily. These women weren't weak or careless. They were doing the best they could with the knowledge, culture, and tools they were given. So as you settle into your own bed tonight, with safer medicine, better information, and a little more permission to rest, maybe offer a quiet thank you to those who came before, the ones who endured quietly, who carried invisible weight, who navigated a world that told them to smile and swallow and keep going. History is strange like that. It's not always loud or heroic. Sometimes it's soft, domestic, and deeply human. Sometimes it's just proof that people are stubborn, adaptable, and a little bit lost. Now let your breathing slow. Let the day fade. The house is still. The night is gentle. And for once you can rest knowing you don't have to wake up in 1962 tomorrow.